Hey guys, welcome back. This is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 9 of my show. And this is also, which is also going to be about Episode 9. But two things I wanted to mention. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention before I did this video is, I'll be doing this one today, but I'll be taking a day off from uploading any Futurama videos tomorrow because tomorrow's Canada Day and stuff. So, but the next Futurama video I'll probably do the day after Canada Day, so probably July 2nd. I just wanted to get that part there out of the way. And the one that I'm going to do on July 2nd is going to count as the first one for the week, because this one's technically counting as the last one for this past week and stuff, and I know it's confusing, but anyway. And like I said, the reason why I'm going to be taking a day off from uploading any videos for Futurama tomorrow is because it's Canada Day here. So that's why. So it's sort of a holiday. But anyway, I just wanted to let everyone know that, just to know what was going to happen with the uploads. But anyway, enough getting off topic. This is History of Futurama Season 2, Episode 9 of my show. And this is also, which is also about Episode 9. And Episode 9 in the Futurama second season is known as Why Must I Be a Crustacean in Love? Now, basically, the name of this episode is actually kind of funny, and what I mean by it being kind of funny is, it's funny because this episode sort of focuses mainly around Zoidberg in a sense, and I'll explain why when I start introducing his character for this segment of the episode. But anyway, basically what happens is Fry and Bender are basically being lazy, sitting on the couch and watching TV. And then while they're watching TV, what happens is Bender he tries to drink one of the beers that he has, but it's empty, and then he's like, oh jeez. Well, actually, what happens is when Fry's on the couch with Bender, he's eating because he's eating something that's like a hot dog, and he's like, which in this case is a Bavarian cream dog, because he's like, now this is what I call 1,000 years of progress, a Bavarian cream dog, which is also self-microwaving. Oh my god. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just hilarious that it's self-microwaving Bavarian cream dog, which is basically like a hot dog with cream inside of it. Oh, I'm sorry, but that's kind of hilarious. Anyway, Bender realizes that when he tries to drink one of the bottles that he has, he realizes that it's empty, and he's like, oh, jeez. Let's just hope I have the energy to grab another beer. And then he uses this robot arm thing that's attached to the TV to bring the beer to him so that he doesn't have to grab it. And the funny thing is, when the robot hand starts pouring it lands on the bottom part of his mouth instead of its actual like before he was able to lift on his chest area and stuff. So he gets annoyed by that, and he's like, what is this? The Middle Ages! So he basically, because of it, he's having to lean down from the couch that he's on in order to drink the beer, and that's when Leela and Amy show up, and then Leela says that she doesn't mean to offend Fry, but he's become like a fat sack of crap, because that's after seeing him. And then Amy says that, which in this case is also a bit of a... And the thing with Amy in this episode is actually really funny, because what she says is... It's actually a funny thing, because she says it doesn't make sense, because she said that... And Bender... Because because Leela tells Fry that he's become basically a fat sack of crap. And then basically Amy tells Bender that his beer belly is so big that the door to his chest won't close. And that doesn't make any sense. Which, in this case, I kind of have to agree, it doesn't make sense. Oh, but it's funny. It's funny. I'm agreeing it's funny because I'm laughing about that, because I do find that part funny. But then, after seeing that, Leela says that they're taking them to the gym, and then when Zoidberg hears that, he's like, "The gymnasium? Excellent, excellent! For some reason, I'm as frisky as a squid on Tuesday." Oh my god, I'm sorry, but that's hilarious. Now, the reason why he's feeling like going to the gymnasium and feeling frisky as a shrimp is actually, it gets explained by Professor Farnsworth. I'm gonna get to what, I'll explain what it is when I get to that part, but, basically, they're at the New York gym in the series, and they're working out on different things, and the funny thing is, when they decide to go to the steam, basically, and this is actually kind of funny, because basically one of the machines that's there is a punching bag that's being used by one of the others. Now, the funny thing a normal punching bag in this timeline, is something that someone punches to exercise their fists and stuff. But the one that they showed with this guy when they were in the series it had boxing gloves attached to it. Oh my god. It had boxing gloves attached to it, and he was punching him as well. And then basically, Leela mentions about going into the steam room with Amy, and then basically when Zoidberg hears that, he's like, "Ugh, we crustaceans don't like steam." And then he says he's gonna go play with the Nautilus. He's gonna go hang out with the Nautilus, which is basically the slugs, and then this slug-like creature, like snail-like creature, shows up, and he's like, "What up, Dr. Z?" And then Zoidberg is like, yo, what's up, give up the rock," which in this case he means basketball, because it's a basketball lingo kind of thing. And then basically, what happens is, Amy sees someone in this sauna machine, but after he comes out of it, he's all flabby, and then basically, Fry is working out on the dumbbell, like one of the weight lifts things, but he has it at a low center of gravity, so he doesn't have to, so he doesn't struggle with lifting it. And then when he tells Leela about that, what happens is she realizes that she realizes that someone must have set the gravity too low, and she'll adjust it for him. Now, the reason why that part is funny is because Fry was the one that adjusted it to the low setting, but Leela didn't know that, but she put it back to a heavier setting, and because of that, the weights basically, they didn't actually kill Fry, but they became so heavy that they kind of choked him. And then, basically what happens is after that, basically what happens after that is, Zoidberg is working out with these, lift weights, and then he's, wanting them to put more weight on. And then they do, and then after they put the weight on, he starts lifting again. And that's when, this top part of his lobster body comes out of it, and Franz asks him, "Hey, Dr. Zoidberg, what's that gas on your neck?" Which is the thing coming out of it, the top part of his head. And then Zoidberg is telling him, "Enough with the questions, more weight." So they put more weight on it, and then he's saying to put more on and more. But then after that, Leela tries to encourage him by saying that maybe he could do more reps with less weight, and then he starts going crazy. Oh my god. Oh, and the funny thing with that is Bender actually makes a joke about that, because it's like, hey, looks like Zoidberg's finally coming out of his shell. Coming out of his shell. Oh, and then Zoidberg goes crazy and attacks the different segments of the gym and stuff. And then basically what happens is when he ends up in the segment of the gym where they're doing these preggercising exercises, which is basically, exercises for people who are pregnant with children, the instructors telling them that they don't want any unnecessary stress because they don't want to upset the baby inside of them as well. But then Zoidberg shows up, which causes them to freak out, which inadvertently causes their water to break, and then the instructor's like, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And then Zoidberg's like, "I'm a doctor." And then it goes back into the scene where they're back at the Planet Express building, and then Leela's wondering why Zoidberg's acting this way, because out of all of them, he's the one that seemed the most normal. And then basically Zoidberg says that he is normal, and he's telling Amy to take off those rubber bands so that you can show them how normal he is. And then basically, but Amy tries to go against that because she's like, "Fool me 7 times, shame on you. Fool me 8 or more times. Fool me 8 or more times, shame on me." Which means that she tried to do it a couple of times beforehand. And she knows from that experience that it's not good to do that, because you could go crazy with them being taken off. And then basically, they get upset about that, and basically, Fry wonders that if Zoidberg has a parasite, and then basically Hermes says that maybe he is a parasite. And then basically Bender tries to take advantage of the situation by Zoidberg going crazy. He's like, "It's always so sad when a friend goes crazy and you have to have a big clam bake and cook them." So he basically wants to cook Zoidberg to make a lobster-based dish. Now, the reason I say that's funny is because that's going to lead into what's going to happen in the last episode of this season that I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to explain about that episode until I get to it. I just wanted to mention that, though. Anyway, the professor is saying that this one goes, he's like, no, this won't do, and he decides to basically give Zoidberg a sedative. But when he tries to give him the sedative on his lobster skin, the needle breaks. And then Zoidberg says that that's much better, and then if someone could just remove those wristbands. And Amy decides to do it, but then the others stop her from doing it, because if she does do it, then Zoidberg will go crazy again, and Bender calls her a moron for that. And then basically, the professor is using different kinds of doctor objects first to think for the needs, and then a stethoscope to look at him, and then he sees what the problem is, and he's like, there it is. There's the issue. And then Zoidberg gets scared about that because he's like, give it to me straight, Professor. Is it fin rot? It's fin rot, isn't it? Tell me it isn't fin rot! And then basically, the professor is telling Zoidberg to calm down because there is no problem. He's just heavy with male jelly. And then when Leela hears the male jelly part of it, she's like, blah! And then basically, after that, what happens is, the professor says that it must be mating season for Zoidberg's people, which is a chaotic time where his actions are depicted by the brain in his rump, which is basically his ass, and then basically Fry gets grossed out by that, which is understandable, but in some species they have their brains in different parts of their body, so it's not real. It is a little disgusting, but it's not entirely. I mean, but anyway, but after that, basically, the professor says that there's only one thing that they have to do, and then Bender gets scared by that, and then the professor tells them that we, as in they, have to take Zoidberg to his ancestral home world, where, and then to a home world, where it'll totally wrapped in this type of invertebrate sex, and then Fry gets excited about that, and then after he gets excited, he's like, "Oh baby, I'm there," and then Leela's being skeptical of him, because she's like, "Fry, do you even understand the word invertebrate?" And he says that he does, but that's not the word he's interested in. He's interested in the sex part, and he says that he tells them that they don't need to pack pants and they have to call, and they basically take the Planet Express ship, the Decapod 10, and after they land on the planetary spaceport, they're greeted by this other member of Zoidberg's species that's another lobster, and he's welcoming them home. And then he's welcoming him home, and then he said that only a few hours until the mating frenzy, and then he said that he said, "See you there, doctor," and then he makes this doot 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 sound, and then Fry basically tells them that, "Is that how you say Zoidberg?" And then the lobster gets upset because of that, and runs off. And the reason why he gets upset and runs off is because Fry noticed he had a speech impediment. Now I'm going to explain what a speech impediment is. I guess you could think of a speech impediment as a type of vocal disability, so to speak. And I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then basically after that lobster left, Zoidberg got annoyed with Fran. He's like, you didn't have to call attention to his speech impediment. And then after that, what basically happens is Zoidberg is taking them in a car, that now the cars on his world, they don't actually drive. They extend their claws like a crab kind of thing, so they walk sort of instead of drive like a crab kind of thing, which makes sense because it's a planet inhabited with creatures that are essentially fish monsters. So, and a crab is a type of seafood creature, so it makes technically it makes sense in this case. And then basically, Bender is telling Zoidberg that he's looking less nuts, and then basically Zoidberg says that he's feeling less nuts because tomorrow he'll be depositing his jelly in the orifices of a female. And then basically what happens after that is Fry wonders who the lucky woman lobster is, and then basically he said that he doesn't know, but he will try to entrance one with an erotic display. And then basically then they come upon this then Zoidberg realizes the place where he used to hang out as a larva creature, which is like, my old scuttling ground, let's pull over. And then he tells them that he used to come here when he was a larva, and it seemed so much bigger back then. Now, the reason why I think he said it seemed so much bigger back then was because I think he was a small larva creature at the time, so in the case of a larva, what is normally small would be kind of big. And then he sees this old crab that's there that I guess was a bully of his, and he's like, who's the tough guy now, Vinny? And then he eats him. And then basically, then they come upon this Coliseum, and then Bender gets excited about seeing the Coliseum, and he's like, ooh, outdoor theater, let's get tickets, let's. And then basically, Zoidberg says that it's not a type of outdoor theater kind of thing, it's the ceremony of what his world calls Clawplac. Now I'm going to explain what Clawplac basically is. It's essentially basically a fight to the death, because the way Zoidberg explains it is, he explains it that it's where his species, he's like, no, it's the ceremony of Clawplac, where my species fights to the death over matters of honor. And this is the funny part. He said that they also fight to the death over something else, which in this case is whether he's like, also, whether the abbreviations count in Scrabble. And then he makes a pointing gesture with his claws and snaps him a bit, and he's like, they don't! And then Fry gets upset with that because he says that he didn't come here to see something between two dudes. He wanted to see where they do it, where his people do their erotic display. And then basically, Zoidberg says the same place as his species, as Fry's species, which is the beach. And then basically, he puts on this monk-like disguise, and after building a small thing to attract a mate, basically what happens is it doesn't work out. Well, actually, he asks them first how he looks, and then Bender says, like, whale barf, and then Zoidberg said that if that's the case, then the illusion is complete. So he basically, after that, he builds a thing to attract a mate with, and then basically after some, lobsters get scared by him and turn him down, he starts doing it, but then he feels depressed because he doesn't know what the point is, and then basically, and then Leela's wondering why Zoidberg is the only one still alone, and then Bender's like, because he's a loser, that's why. He's the lobster equivalent to Fry. And then basically Fry tells Bender that he can date him whenever he wanted. He's just too busy. And then while Zoidberg's still feeling a little down, what happens is he sees someone that he used to know from high school, which is this other female lobster named Edna. And then after he tries to explain to her who he is, and then she's surprised by it, and then because she's curious, and then he said that she used to laugh at him because his face used to be covered with barnacles. And then after that, she finds out that she's surprised to see that he's back in town, and she heard that he left to become a rich doctor, and he said that he performed a few mercy killings, and then he tried to mate with her after telling her that, but she says that basically, she said that basically she carries more eggs than any other female of their species, and she owes it to that to basically find a man who's simply cloning with a lot of jelly to have her eggs, and then basically she said that he an inferior specimen, and said that, but before she leaves, she said that it was nice to see him again, and then Zoidberg gets upset, and then he basically is feeling sorry for himself afterward, because he said that nobody would want to be a mate with me, not with a puny little claw like this. Did you see those other guys? They were like big claws with bodies attached. And then basically Leela says that at least he didn't smell as bad as them, but basically Zoidberg takes that literally when he said that his stink gland is weak and he has her smell it, and then basically after that, Fry basically decides to take Zoidberg under his wing to teach him how to impress a woman, and then after some of the tests, what happens is the final test is he has to, what happens after that is he tries to impress Edna with Fry's help, and then afterward they're at this food restaurant which is called the Red Primate. Now I'm just gonna mention something. That name is actually, I guess you could kind of consider it to be the decapod equivalent of a fast food restaurant that's here in the real world, like here on Earth. It's called the Red Lobster. But since it's a planet that's, in this case, it's a planet, the planet Decapod 10 is a planet filled with lobsters, they can't have them eating their own people, so they have to call it a different name, which is a red primate, which is essentially a monkey, basically. And then basically after that, what happens is, this was after Fry tried to have Zoidberg impress Edna by teaching him along, and then basically what happens is he gives Zoidberg this note, and then he reads it, and he says, "Coach, check." Nope, like he tells you that he proposed a toast. Coach, number 34, and then basically Fry says to turn it over, and he sees that it's Edna, and then basically after Zoidberg says what's on there, Edna gets weirded out by it and leaves, and then she says that she's gonna go powder her mouth flap, and then basically Leela says that her too, and then basically Zoidberg is being confused by what's happening, because he's asking Fry, is it love to care about a female other than mating, and then basically Fry says that nope, he thinks that it must be some kind of weird alien emotion, and then after Leela tries to explain to Edna about Zoidberg's a really great guy and that Fry's just been teaching him along, and then after she mentions that part, she asks her if they have idiots on their planet, but when Edna overhears the fact of Fry, what happens is she gets entranced by that and brings him a fish to call him over to her house, and then because the fish said to talk about Zoidberg, which it wasn't, because she was entranced by him, and then basically after he encounters her there, she had to kiss and stuff, and Fry said that he's flattered if you make out with a mud bug, she'd be way up on the list. And then basically what happens is, while they're doing that, Zoidberg comes in and he tries to tell her that he couldn't handle it and couldn't stand it anymore, that he loves her, and then basically when he sees Fry with her, he gets angry and he's like, Fry, and then basically Fry tells Zoidberg that it's not what he thinks, and then Zoidberg gets angry with him about that, and he's like, her caviar is on your neck! And then basically, after Edna explains that Fry only love they're gonna meet tomorrow, which is an exaggeration because it's not, because Fry's not interested in her, and that's when Zoidberg tells Fry, Fry, I challenge you to Clawplac! And then after he snaps his claws, Fry's telling him to tell what that means in English, and then Zoidberg's like, a fight to the death! And then basically Edna says that if he survives, and then Bender, and then Fry starts screaming because he's startled by that, and then he's freaked out by that he's gonna have to fight Zoidberg to the death. And then basically what happens is, in the next scene, 2 lobster carts are bringing Fry to where the Emperor of the planet is, and then after the Emperor says that, after the Emperor said that because of the law, Fry and Zoidberg have to fight to the death for the claw of Edna, Fry starts explaining that he doesn't want her, but the Emperor explains that once invoked, the sacred tradition of Clawplac can never be taken back, and then he says that it's a recent tradition, only about some 100 years old, but a tradition nonetheless. And then after that, what happens is they put Fry and Zoidberg in the arena, and then Zoidberg's like, get ready, Fry. I'm going to rip your swim bladder out and show it to you. And then after that, Leela tells Zoidberg that this is madness and that he's being irrational, and then Zoidberg freaks out and says that, of course I'm being irrational, I'm in love, and then Leela gets, cuted out by that, like, she's like, oh, and then Fry gets angry with Leela about that, and after that, Leela tries to get the Emperor to stop the fight to the death madness, and then the Emperor basically says, listen, lady, as you can plainly see, I am a highly desirable male groaning with jelly, but I embrace a life of celibacy in order to uphold our crazy traditions. Yet I embrace a life of celibacy in order to uphold our crazy traditions. One of your friends must die. And then basically Bender takes that as an opportunity to place bets on who wins. And then after the Emperor basically has Edna say some words, and then basically after that Fry tells her to shut up, but then Edna becomes still infatuated with Fry about that, said that she loves him, and then Zoidberg freaks out, so the lobster guards have to hold him back. And then after that, what happens is the Emperor is telling Fry that, having guessed what animal he was thinking of, he will have first choice of weapon. So they open this weapon locker, and he shows, which has some different killing weapons, and then basically the one that he chooses is actually like a nutcracker-based device, like a pinch device that causes things to crack, like, you know, like nuts, like peanuts and walnuts and nutcrackers and stuff, like sort of. And then basically the Emperor is asking Zoidberg which weapon he wants to use, and then Zoidberg's like, I choose my own claws. I want the tactile pleasure of chopping him here. And then he points to Fry's throat when he says that, because he's like, I want the tactile pleasure of chopping him here in the gonads. And then Fry's like, shush, nobody correct him. And then they start doing this national anthem, which is, I think, a monster movie flick, like a pipe organ monster movie flick. I think it's some kind of thing. And then after that, the Emperor's like, let Clawplac begin! And then they start fighting, and then what happens is, while they're fighting, and Zoidberg manages to use his claws to cut a Z on Fry, and then after that, he puts the words doctor on it to say that it's doctor and stuff, and then Fry manages to knock him down, but then he comes at him with his feet that are also claws, and then after that, what happens is, Fry then puts him in the nut cracking device which is the weapon that he chose from the thing, and then, well, because first what happened was Zoidberg had his claws over Fry's neck, and then Bender told Fry to take a dive. Well, see, because Bender was placing bets on who would win, and before the fight started, he told Fry that when it came to the ninth round, just let him win. But then Fry said that it was a fight to the death, which is true. And then basically, I'm just backtracking to that part. Anyway, when Zoidberg has Fry in his claws, Edna gets scared by that. And when Zoidberg sees that, what happens is Fry uses that as an opportunity to put the nut cracking device on his neck. And then they're like, and then the lobsters are all chanting like, Clawplac, Clawplac, Clawplac. And then basically Bender is telling Fry to take a dive. And then as he's using instead of using the nut cracking device on the lobster skin, he puts it down, and then he's telling the fish monsters that far be it, like he's like, my fellow fish monsters, far be it for me to judge your weirded out society and its whack, your crazy society and its weird customs, but is squeezing each another's head out with the nutcracker really gonna solve anything? And then he basically says that Dr. Zoidberg is his friend, and even though a woman has come between them, he thinks that they'll always be friends, and he was about to tell them why, and it's because he's like, one reason, and this is the anticlimactic part of it, because the reason why I say it's anticlimactic is Zoidberg takes that as an opportunity to use his claws to cut Fry's arm off of his body, and then Fry gets annoyed by it, and he's like, "You bastard! I'll kill you! You bastard!" And they resume fighting again, and then while they're fighting, Leela tells them to stop because everyone's gone. And then basically, Zoidberg wonders where they all went, and then he sees Edna with the Emperor, and then they're passing on him because of the frenzy, because they were taking too long and the frenzy had just happened. And then basically after Zoidberg sees that, he's like, "The frenzy! Oh, the greatest experience in life, and I missed it." And then basically, because basically, when they saw what was happening, Leela and Bender got grossed out by that. And then Fry is telling Zoidberg that he's sorry, and then he says that then Zoidberg says that the frenzy's over. He says that after he puts some like a antiseptic inside Fry's arm to basically numb the pain from when he got his arm cut off, because Zoidberg basically puts it back on him at the end of the episode. Now I'm gonna mention that because basically what happens is, after Zoidberg put it in, he gets upset, like he's like, "The frenzy is over. How will I ever get rid of my male jelly now?" And then Fry said that it'll lend him his arm, and then he was like, "Fry!" And then basically, that's when these seagulls show up, and then basically what happens is after that, they start bird crapping on Bender, and then Bender's like, "What's with the flying jerks?" And then Zoidberg tells them that they come to feast after the frenzy. Because once his species passes on their genes, the members of his species dies, and then when Fry overhears that, he's like, "You mean you have to choose between a life without sex or a gruesome death?" And then Zoidberg's like, "Yes." And then Fry said that's a tough call, which, in all honesty, I kind of have to agree with him at that point. Because it is kind of ironic that after they pass on their genes, they die and stuff. And the reason why I say that I kind of agree with it is because it is a tough call to make. I know it's just a TV show, but either way, that's still a tough call to make. And then basically, Zoidberg manages to put Fry's arm back on him, and then he's thanking Fry for letting him put his arm back on after he made such an eel of himself. And then Fry says that it's no biggie, but then Zoidberg says that it is a biggie because he got to experience emotions that he never felt before. Love, jealousy, and passion for disemboweling. Oh, but before I finish the episode, I just want to mention, before they actually started the fighting part of the episode, Zoidberg asked Fry, because it had been years since medical school for him at the time, so he asked him, disemboweling his species, fatal or not fatal, and then Fry said fatal, so Zoidberg placed a bet on himself for round one. Oh my god! Oh, it's bet on himself for the first round of the fight. And then basically what happened, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because of what Zoidberg says after the biggie, because like he says that it's a yes biggie because he got to experience emotions that he never got to experience before. Love, jealousy, and a passion for disemboweling. And it was all thanks to him. And he manages to put Fry's arm back on. And then after he said that he does that, he said that he pronounces the operation a success. And then after that, he says that he doesn't know, he may not know much from emotion, but when it comes to medicine, forget about it. And then Fry gets startled by that because Zoidberg put his arm on the wrong side of him because he put the arm that he cut off on the, which I believe was his right arm, on where his left arm was, because he's asking him, I don't mean to nitpick, Super Doc, but do you think you could take another crack at this? And then Zoidberg says that for his friend, anything, and then he uses the zapper, and then after that, he says that, alright, that turns the charm, and then he uses it again, and then 5 falls flat. Now, I don't think he's actually dead, but I think it's just, they put it as a way to end the episode, and that's basically where this episode stops. So if you guys like this video when I post it, just please give this video the real best you guys can. And I will see you the day after tomorrow for the next Futurama video. But until then, guys, like I always tell you with this series, fun on a bun.